Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Port Royal May Budget Workshop. Van, whenever you're ready.
Well, you know, we went through the budget pretty extensively last week, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, I believe, to fill this hour with some discussion. But I think one of the things that we did want to talk about, and one of the things, the request made by council was to do some phasing in on the police budget relative to the salaries. And Chris and Brooke and I sat down and went through those numbers and kind of disregard what's over here in red here. I just wanted to note that we had talked about phasing in the command staff increases. And so what we have calculated in that salary line item, and obviously associated salary line items, were a 5% increase in the upcoming fiscal year in addition to that cost of living adjustment. So the second 5% phase would be completed in the next fiscal year. So the number that you're seeing at the bottom there is a pretty accurate assessment of what we believe the police department budget will be for the upcoming fiscal year. And we went ahead and included back in on the capital expenditures the entire cost of the renovations to the police department second floor, as well as a buyout of the final leases for the 2018 Ford Explorers. So
this includes, this is the 5% COLA
plus the 5%.
And then the 5% for
Yeah.
chief, deputy chief,
Yes.
captains, lieutenants,
Right.
to have another 5%
Right.
In the next fiscal
next
year.
year. For all
Yeah,
the-
because when if you recall from last week's discussion, we had left, we moved code enforcement over to the executive side.
Right.
And so that left basically a position open. And we were able to utilize the funds from that line item designated for that salary for the increases for those positions that I mentioned. Now, obviously, calculating salaries, particularly in this labor environment, is pretty challenging. And so there is discretion built into that line item to accommodate those increases.
I remember us talking about this at the retreat,
Right.
and I remember that we're having a problem with recruiting and retention. How does this help our recruiting and help our retention?
The argument at the retreat was that by making these positions, I believe, more attractive financially, that it might encourage some of the incoming or junior officers to want to continue their employment with the town because there might be opportunities very similar to what they might see in other agencies.
Yeah,
If you recall, the other incentive that we were considering was post-retirement health insurance coverage up to the qualification for Medicaid, Medicare. We haven't really calculated a number or gotten a clarification on what the thresholds might be. And I think obviously you have to retire from our agency. And the second piece is, the number of years. And then the third piece, would you apply it just to the police department?
Right, I guess.
So you got this group that we're taking care of, but I hear all the time how short we are and how we can't find people, what are we doing for this group to get those people? I get what you're saying. We want to get these
Yeah.
people to continue to stay so they can get in that role.
The conversation that I remember, and that paperwork was in the packet,
Yeah.
is that we were on par with the patrol officers with the other agencies. So
Okay.
the movement that was happening
Okay.
between agencies was not due to dollar value. It may have more been due to the ability for advancement or leaving the community completely. And that's why, this is the conversation I'm remembering. it allows us to have some ability for people to see there's a chance for advancement staying where you are instead of starting over at a whole new location at a salary that's equal to some of those other ones, if not exactly, but at least on par with the level of service that we offer versus they offer, size of departments. That's what I'm remembering, Van, am I right, that we
Yeah.
are on par?
And
with
Ron,
the-
I don't know if you want to speak to
With,
that.
with the patrol officers?
We're all hiring at the same rate. It's about your 5 to 7 year mark where we start to see some disparity between us and the other agencies. And like you all understand, our hope is that we'll encourage these 5 to 7 year officers to stay longer because they'll have, they'll have some reward.
Have opportunities.
For their, longevity. Keep it up like that.
So our entry-level positions, you're saying we're in line with
Yeah, we're all within a couple $100 of each other.
county, city, town?
The county's gonna make another raise soon from what I heard last Friday. But generally speaking, we're all within a few $100s of each other to start an officer.
And the disparity is what you get up into the ranks.
We get about 5 to 7 years, and that's when we're typically losing people because they'll see another position that possibly has more advancement or possibly pays more money at a different agency.
Okay. That's all I have. Go ahead, Jeff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
So is the county thinking about an additional plus a COLA for their deputies?
Well, this is unofficial. I was talking to one of their officers at a wedding I was at last Saturday.
Oh, so we can really take this one to heart, right?
Was it the wedding or the
They
reception?
made it for their middle people and stuff. They can't afford to leave the county now at that 5 to 7 sergeant rank because no other agency will match what they're making or even come close. And so, the county's actually being successful with retention. As we all know, they've had the same command staff for 10 years at least. That's where they're holding on to their officers for the longest after we're kind of losing them to them.
And then the issue of the benefits after retirement,
Yeah.
I mean,
And right now, I mean, I don't have a census of the anticipated retirements in the, upcoming fiscal year to calculate, and we had different thresholds that we were evaluating in terms of coverage, whether we took care of it fully, whether we made a contribution in terms of whatever their participation was. So we don't have that included yet because it's a policy decision. And y'all need to decide if it's just going to be police department or if it's going to be other departments as well.
I can tell you that I struggle with saying it's just police.
Yeah,
I have no,
Say it again?
that just police get
raise.
they'll get benefits beyond retirement until you reach Medicare. I mean, I understand their job, I understand what they do. They have benefits that are over the regular, if they get to retire earlier if they choose to. But everybody works hard at the town, all town employees. And if we're gonna offer that benefit, then we really need to look at offering the benefit to all employees.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
What does that cost? That's not anything that's gonna happen in this budget cycle.
No.
Let's, the reality of that right here, right now, I don't think there's any way. But you got 6 months to 10 months from here to say, what would it look like if we were to say, or is it just a stipend, I'll use that word, after retirement, and we're gonna give you so much towards your benefits if you stay in the state retirement system. If you choose to leave the state retirement system and, because you get another job, then we're not. I think that's the way I
Yeah,
would
and
think
I mean,
about that.
and I assume obviously it's going to be triggered by some number of service years, specifically to retire with the town and X number of years of service to the town. You can't come in and, work here 5 years and then.
No, you gotta work your full retirement service here.
Do you do like years of service plus age? Is there a formula that?
Well, I think when we looked at that particular policy, I mean, there were some things that we'd have to figure out. I mean, you might say, all right, if you came here, you worked at another agency for X number of years, and you've been, worked here for 20, 25 years, what's the threshold that gets you that post-retirement benefit?
Right, the concern would be they work somewhere else for 20 years, then come here for 5, and then
Yeah,
get
no,
that full
I think
benefit.
y'all
That's-
got to come up with a number that's pretty significant that you stay with the town.
That's a reason for somebody to leave the sheriff's department and flop to us the last 5
I think
years.
that's also explained, we were looking at like 15 or 20-year threshold on that. You know, you can't just, like you said, leave another agency, be here for 2, and then retire and get that benefit. That would be something that, you know, you'd have to earn for your longevity.
And I'm sorry that I don't know this, I'm in the state retirement system, but it changed during my tenure. The current retirement system is a number, right? It's years plus,
You basically, you take your 18 months of highest pay.
but to the retire, it's years plus age.
It's
You have to get
55
a
in the
number.
police, so the
If you're a
police-
new employee, if you're already in the system, you're
Right,
you're not
it
dealing
it
with it.
changed over the years, and that's some of, I was.
So what is it? I don't know. What is it?
The old one, when I was hired back in '88, it was strictly 28 years.
Not with the police.
I was told-
Police was 25.
Five.
I was 25 or 55. when
Yeah,
I
correct.
joined and I'm grandfathered in at that. The current one is.
60.
27, 57 for force.
All right.
For police.
And then what is it for regular employees?
Was it
No.
28?
We can
60.
still,
I think
go
it
ahead.
was
Still 28 and,
28 and something.
28 and 55. I think.
Yeah, there's a magic number. Right, that's what we
Right.
call the
Changed to
magic.
60.
So it's 28 and
I thought it
55.
went up.
So you have to be at least 28 you have to be 28 years, plus you have to be over 55 to retire.
And when did we start with the police retirement? Because we haven't been with the.
92.
And what,
1992.
92, okay, I knew,
But that's everybody. That's not just
yeah.
police, right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's all town employees.
Right, yeah, that's when we opted into the retirement system, was 1992, because we had a number of employees that had worked for the town for a number of years, but
Right.
didn't have the time qualification if they were at that 25 or 30
Right.
threshold. However, we did make contributions on an annual basis. I think we gave them, what, $1,500 or $3,000 annually, that they had the discretion to put into some sort of retirement fund, but I'm not sure how often that happens, so.
I just pulled
I
it
think
up.
that's what we opted to participate in, the state retirement system.
It says you can retire to receive a reduced monthly retirement benefits after 28 years of service or at the age of 65 or older. You can retire early at the age of 60 or the age of 55 with 25 years of service to receive the reduced monthly retirement benefit.
But full is 28 and 65. Full is 28 and 65.
Right.
And the new, I don't think that applies to anybody that was currently, was in the
That's South
system prior to
Carolina-
that.
Yeah, South Carolina retirement system. Age
Because the real, I
65
mean,
or
if
older.
you're a
was a
police
con-
officer, you came on at 18, you did your 25, full retirement.
But I think that went into effect about 8 or 10 years ago.
There was some reform to the system
I
because of how the
remember,
poor
when that was
performance.
going into effect.
Yeah, I mean, we had some really bad management of the retirement system that
Right.
really put us in a
I remember
hole.
having to change my discussion with people.
And that's why it's also become significantly more expensive for employers and employees to contribute to the system. There were some state legislatively mandated contribution increases for both sides, employer and employee. We're dealing with the last one now. I mean, the SCRS, I mean, it went from, I mean, we're at almost 18 and a little over 18.5% contribution. I mean, that's to make up for the shortfalls in the system. It was significantly less than that in prior, what, 10 years ago? So it almost got to a point where it almost made no sense to participate in the retirement system because of how badly it was performing and how much it was costing. So, but going back to the budget itself, as proposed, it is phased. It's a 2-year phase-in for the 10% increase above the cost of living adjustment that is being proposed now, which is 5%.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. About that 5% COLA increase and why we decided to do that. Because what do they have it set at?
Well, we typically look to Social Security just to kind of see what it is.
Okay.
And this,
'Cause I know inflation's
this year
like
was
about-
supposed to be 7.65,
Okay.
and we've kind of used it as somewhat of a guideline, but just trying to be practical at that point, I'd just ask Chris to estimate that cost of living on a 5%.
What would it do, what would that do to add that to everybody? And the only reason I ask is just because, I mean, inflation is going up at 6-7% every month. You know, we just talked about taking care of everybody and how great our staff is, and, you know, if that's important, then it's important to.
Well, let's,
Well, the 5% COLA is for everybody.
But I'm just saying, but we're
Not
doing under,
additional.
we're doing under what the Social Security is recommending. I mean, they set that across the board.
You look up Social Security now and tell me what you think it is. And see, I think it's.
7.65.
We're just saying that that's what they're recommending is 7.65,
Why I keep bumping that.
which makes about sense. You know, the inflation reports that come out monthly are around 6-7%.
I'm on Social Security.
Well, I'm just saying, if that's the
So just
recommendation
right,
is,
just to clarify the retirement argument, if you were hired prior to July 1, 2012,
Right.
that's the date. I knew it was a while ago. It's 28 straight years, police are 25. Or 65 years old. If you have less than 28, you still get full benefits. If you were hired after July 1, the magic number is 90. So I knew there was a magic number, I just didn't know what it was. So your age, your time of service plus age has to hit 90 for you to get full. So if you start at 18 years old, you got to get to a point, you got to work a long time at that later in life.
30 years of service,
Yeah.
60 years of age.
Yep, so you got to hit 90. So that's the magic number in that way, and it's 2012. So we would actually have to look at our staff and say how many were hired before 2012, how many were hired after 2012, because that's going to change when people can retire. People can retire earlier if they were hired before 2012. Stay
Well,
around
I
a
mean, if
little
you go to a 20-year threshold, anybody hired after 2012 isn't going to be eligible for quite some time
longer.
anyways.
Right, right.
So you got some time to mull that number
That's
over.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what do we, if you, I know, Chris, it would be a rough estimate, like the 5% cost of living adjustment across all departments. And I know you typically run that calculation to tell me what the difference is. Yeah, I mean, you're trying to figure out what the
We
difference
did
between
the whole
7.65 and
code, yeah.
5% would
We
be.
gave everybody
So,
the
so
full
actually,
COLA.
I guess what you're asking, Kevin, and what we need to know is, what's 5, what's 6, what's 7%?
well, what's the full COLA?
What would the differences be there? Right?
I'll be right back.
Appreciate that, Kevin, appreciate that. I get where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just-
We have a different table, but it's a little more detailed by
And
employee,
just- and if it's doable, it's something.
and it breaks it out by
Yeah.
department.
Where are you now with your balanced budget? You haven't shown that?
Yeah, let's go here.
Bring that chart up.
You know, I want
Right
to make sure
now-
we treat everybody the same.
Oh, absolutely.
So right now,
We're at a shortfall.
we're at a surplus
Oh, okay.
of $5,855. So we're pretty precise where we are. Now, that is still with a proposed budget for property tax reasons of $4,750,000. And I'm still working on
That number.
what a potential rollback might mean to us. It's a convoluted formula based upon prior year tax collections as well as your new assessed values backing out growth, renovations, all those sorts of things. So I was doing a little bit of calculations today, and then I should have a better grasp of what that will be. Because when I went back and looked at what the assessor sent us in the last email, she felt like she was 90% there on the number she gave us. I really want to have a little bit more certainty before I
Get to
give you a
95%
number.
At least.
What's that?
Get to 95% at least?
Yeah, at least get to 95%. But we've got some decent information, obviously, from them, so we have some idea. The purpose of the rollback in terms of addressing any sort of supposed windfall that an entity may receive because of that increase in assessment. So, and we're capped. We've talked about this last week. Existing properties that didn't sell, they realize that 15%. They're capped at a 15% increase in value for taxing reasons. Now, point of sale, new construction, renovations, all those things can trigger that additional growth. So you've got to figure out all that new growth that you've seen in your tax base really shouldn't impact your rollback. That's just growth.
Right.
But you're trying to avoid any sort of, the state legislature wanted to make sure you guys didn't get a whole lot of money to play with because of reassessment, despite the fact that they capped it. If there had been no Act 388 and values were really based upon what the state constitution says, fair market value, you would see a significant increase. And you would have seen a significantly larger rollback. But that's not the way Act 388 works.
But if we have to do a rollback, we lose just as much revenue to the new property sales as we do to the existing property.
Yeah, they will.
There's no way to roll back only
Yeah.
existing property owners.
No,
It's a
they get to
millage
enjoy
across
it.
the board, so the people that bought are getting an advantage over the rollback. That was really, 388 wasn't really supposed to be doing that, but it does in that way.
Didn't we talk about having the projects fund for?
Right, so that's the next, any
Right.
further thoughts on a CIP
Yeah,
project?
well, what
that
Brooke is
plan
working on a
is?
little bit, you have your spreadsheet of the capital improvements, and we're adding some additional projects to it. What we've asked Michael to do is flesh out the potential costs of all these projects, and then extrapolate what we might need to start savings above and beyond our borrowing, our stormwater utility funds, and any other sources of revenue to help offset the costs of that, so that we could potentially set aside funds for a capital improvement program. And that would be, it would be a typical line item expense, more than likely, because most of these fall under streets and sanitation or public works or whatever you want to call it. We would start setting aside those funds so that you can start building up a little bit of a chest. Now, we have, our fund balance is doing it particularly well. So you do have that you have those funds as well. And you can always do operating transfers in.
Money from the fund balance to the capital balance.
You can do that, yeah.
At the
And
end
what
of the
we've had to
year-
do in years past is we've had to do transfers, we budgeted transfers in, number one, to keep the millage stable,
Correct.
so that we did not have to increase taxes, and we'd utilize those savings, if you will, to balance the budget.
Right.
But in the last few years, we really haven't had to do that because we've seen such growth in the revenue side, whether it's property taxes, as well as business license fees.
So are you contemplating, or I guess I'm really suggesting, as much are you contemplating, it's both. One second, Chris. Are you saying that any project over, I'll use a $5,000 number right now, any project over $5,000 would be funded out of the capital program, anything under 5,000 can be put into your operational budget? So that they would have the option for small capital items to buy things that they need on an everyday in the department, but larger stuff would be vetted out of that full program and move forward. I could throw
Yeah.
out a number of $5,000, but it
Yeah,
could be.
we would have it, but with the realization that we have multiple sources of funds.
Correct.
Stormwater utility funds.
Correct.
Because a lot of our capital improvements are stormwater related. They're grants.
Right. And then there'd be
There's
the
some
funding source
discretion
for those
as
projects would
hospitality
be.
accommodations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but you would need, none of, the stormwater utility fund could not fully fund what we're doing on West Paris,
Right.
in Paris and Madrid. So you're gonna need some funding, whether it was, we've got the $750 from state rural infrastructure to do that. But what we conceivably could do is if we set aside 1 or 2 mills for a capital improvement program, then they would start building that fund.
And right now, a mill is gonna be 70,
Around 66 grand.
66?
Yeah.
So 120,000 a year into a capital improvement program.
I don't ever think it's a bad idea to have money saved.
No, it's not. It's a
If
good.
you're able to, I mean.
It's a
if you're in
good
that
idea,
position,
and it
yeah.
really allows us, because then we can, then the other side is we have a capital plan, and here are all the projects, and total cost, and how are we gonna fund them, and what grants are we gonna go for, and what
And then-
pots are gonna come out of.
And
Because, we right now are significantly lower in our stormwater utility rate compared to all the other municipalities. We're around $50. And I can show you all what the revenue generation is per municipality. And ours is significantly lower, because, obviously we don't have the same scale of some of the projects that are being undertaken. But, if if we have the need, particularly if we start doing some things on Rebo Road, we need to start thinking about maybe reevaluating that. But that would be studied to make sure that we can justify it.
Well, I would think it would be beneficial too, that if we had that money there, at some point, if we did need to go look at a grant, we we've got money that we need to put in. Or
Matching.
If it's matching.
If we're going to another, state or county level, and they're gonna say, well, we'll give money, and we can, well, we've already got money to say, well, we can
Right,
we
it
can
al-
designate 50,000 right now, today we got
It
it.
also gives you design dollars,
Yeah.
design projects to have them shovel-ready for when you can defund them as well.
And to be quite honest with you, sometimes projects are evaluated more favorably if there's a higher level match.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
design.
Yeah. Shovel ready, basically. so.
Shovel-ready, if you will, that aspect. Chris came in and he left, so we'll wait a minute for him to come back again.
Yeah. Trying to think of some of the more.
But the way you're showing this budget right now, you don't have 2 mills to say, to put aside towards that.
No, not right now, but that's, if we were at 74 mills, at the current value, it would generate 4.9 million and some change.
That's the 2 mills that you would need then.
Yeah, that's more. Yeah, that'd be 3.
That'd be 3 mills.
And just for me to clarify, so in this new budget, what all new employees are being, or what positions are being created?
Let's go. Let's see,
I know we've said it, but just to reiterate.
well, one of the things we did, obviously, is under executive, we moved the code enforcement officer to this side of the house. So that was included. Building, we added an employee
Okay.
to help administratively. And I think that's going to be pretty important for both Noah and Mike. We added an additional employee to streets and sanitation. So, and we're actively advertising those positions now, so we're hoping that we'll.
And that's a field employee.
What's that? Yeah.
That's a field employee. And you've got the,
Yeah, and the administrative person is going to handle both the kind of zoning building permits as they walk through the door, as well as doing some organizational things with streets and
so that's the
sanitation.
half kind of.
Yeah, we need to just get a little bit better at work orders, materials, making sure that the bulk stuff is being scheduled appropriately. Because right now, we had an employee there, sitting in that chair, basically full-time. But because of the nature of this labor market, unfortunately, we lost that person. So we've got somebody half-time in that chair. So you all can walk in and see what's sitting on the table. And so we're just trying to stay on top of that. Noah asked for 2 things, maybe a zoning technician and then a second planner. We're going to try to get the zoning technician piece of it nailed down so that we can start moving some of this stuff through, make sure that phone calls are being properly handled. But right now, it's just a bit overwhelming. So,
Chris is back.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you went, by the Social Security, the 7.65.
Yeah.
It results in roughly about a little over $77,000 increase overall of the salaries. And then if you went up 10%, I just want to make a number there, another 10%, looking at about $146,000.
And that's above the 5, the 77 you mentioned is the difference between 5% and 7.65.
Okay, so this,
It'd be an additional 77.
the additional 77.
Across all departments.
Yeah, that's just salary, that doesn't.
Yeah, that-
affect
yeah.
Benefits.
FICA,
Right.
Right.
retirement percentages.
So you could almost 30% that.
Yeah, I'd say about $100,000.
Right, so it's a $100,000 increase
Yeah. The
to go from 5
2.65.
to 7.6.
And so you'd have to make some decisions if you go back here,
Where are you gonna take it from?
Right.
where we land on this number will be interesting.
Well, didn't you just say if we had 74 mills?
It's 4.9.
You're
but-
looking at-
But I think state law is going to probably dictate that there's some sort of rollback. What that percentage will be is yet to be determined. So we get some, like I said, she's 90% certain, but it's my daughter, make sure she did her homework. Alarm. So, yeah, so,
So we need another couple weeks to figure out what that
yeah,
final,
yeah.
that final 4.7 that we have now, really what that number is.
It's a placeholder because I think that's a good neighborhood, but it could go up in terms of what we have the ability to collect. Because we've had so much growth that a lot of what we saw above the previous property year tax collections is things that are hitting. They're getting, they got CO, but they, the way the system works is even though you have a CO, they may not pay taxes for another 12 months to 18 months.
Right.
So you've got some things that are hitting the books and they're now paying taxes. So that accounts for a significant amount of the growth. I mean, just for example, looking at our taxing districts, we're, roughly 50 million in assessed afterwards. We added, I think this past year, 3-4 million in assessed value growth. That's growth. That's not reassessment value. That's growth. Yeah. And then with apartment complexes come vehicles, boats, all of those things that get taxed in our District 110 and District 112.
We had conversations in the past, and I know it happened again this week, on that GIS position. Is there
Yeah.
any consideration in this budget to be,
I think when, if you look at executive, under special contracts, now I know we've got it broken out in a couple different places, but we would have potentially, and we would do that in partnership
Okay.
with the city of Beaufort.
and you think you could take that would be out of that
I
special?
think, yeah, I could work it because obviously I don't think it'll be stood up on July 1.
No.
So I don't know if, we go the employee route and then we do some sort of proportional payment based upon not population, but rooftops or whatever.
Can't use the same rooftop value that we use for fire?
You could.
I mean, that's something that's already established and we
Yeah.
know what it is.
Yeah. I'd love to do it on the basis of the tax,
Percentage of taxes?
Yeah,
I
tax
like
base,
that
that'd
one
be
too.
good.
That's real good.
but that, I don't know if it's employee route or if you're going to add a module to,
Right.
whoever they're using for IT
Well-
services. So. And we want to interface that. And there are a couple other things that, there was a couple of modules that we talked about that we're going to be able to include in this budget as well that will help us streamline some of the permitting processes, both on the building permit side as well as the zoning side. So we'll be able to do some more things in the field. So the person, hopefully administratively in the office, will have some additional time to really handle kind of the walk-in business and deal with some of the more mundane or easily, I don't know what I'm looking for here, simpler zoning requests, maybe sheds, things like that. So allow Noah a little bit more time to dig into some of the more complicated
Okay.
issues. So,
Other conversations, other thoughts?
No, it's time.
So I think what we're hearing, and the way I'm understanding it is, you need a little bit more time and there may need to be one more workshop.
I think one more workshop.
Just so that we can have this final number.
Yeah.
And we could do that at the June workshop before that workshop.
Yeah, then-
Does that give you enough time?
Oh, yeah,
As long as we don't go crazy on what we tell you?
Yeah,
To
no.
get done in a week?
No, yeah, we could. I mean, because I will have a better idea of what the final property tax number should be. We'll have one more month of actual expenditures and revenue collection. So we'll be able to kind of project those even better than we were before.
Can you let anybody standing in the hallway know they
Now
can
they
come
can
in?
come in.
There's some
So,
people
yeah.
standing in the hallway, let them know they can come in.
But I still think we're still looking, we'll still be in that $9 million range for the budget.
And I was just saying, I mean, since we're wrapping, sounds like we're wrapping this
We're
up.
not wrapping up, we're getting close.
Yeah, no, just kind of like the issues, just to reiterate that we brought up, I like where we're at with the police, where they're at, the new employees. That's great. I would like to see if it's possible, a full COLA for everybody, and then that project funds, I think is a good idea to look into, yeah.
Yeah,
So those are kind of like just where I'm
I
at
know
on it,
this,
just those
right,
issues.
I know it's never, I shouldn't say that, sometimes it is the right choice. But if the COLA is something that council is, it's gonna take a little bit more work to get to that number, because then you gotta go back to the police department, drop theirs down, because if they're getting 7.6 here, what does that do to the 5%?
Yeah.
We just it'll put the 5% on top of
I
that.
would think they would just tilt, because the COLA that's not bonus. That's like,
Yeah.
that's because everything
Cost
has
of
gotten
living.
more expensive.
Do you know what any of
That's
the- what's
that's not
happening in the area?
Here's a good job. It's, groceries are more
You know,
expensive now.
It's all over the board.
Yeah, what's the city, the county, what are
Yeah.
the other governmental agencies?
Well,
I'd have to look into that.
Ours is, we're gonna do a 5.6
And that is
COLA,
with who? Sorry.
BJEOC.
Okay. You're
And, you know,
doing
then there were
5.6,
some- Other agencies made some mid-year adjustments last year
right.
to react to that cost of living increase.
Well, I guess ultimately,
Inflation.
where I was going with that conversation, are we saying that we're willing to do a fund balance transfer to cover the COLA?
What is our?
To go to, from the
Percentage
5 to
right
the
now.
7.6?
The only problem
That-
I have with that is
that's
it's a
the problem.
recurring,
Right.
you know, obviously next year it could be 2.
Right, right.
What is
Next
our
year-
fund balance right now, percentage?
About 5 mil, so there would be. a
Yeah, well, our
small
fund
amount.
balance right now, we're
What, like,
We're about 40-50% of our annual budget, I think.
Like,
That's
I'd
high.
be okay with doing whatever.
Yeah.
I just think it's important to.
Yeah, we've
Take
got a
care of it.
healthy fund
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah,
If
that's
we-
how, that's how.
And
If we
I
were
think
to
it's
do it,
around
it would not
5
affect our fund balance, but we all need to be prepared to what it does. to- It's a non-recurring fund, but like Van said, the cost of living could be much lower next year. We don't have to do it as much. If we keep, the growth pattern stays, the budget could, you know, the tax revenue alone could absorb that, let's be realistic, almost $100,000 to be able to cover that without reducing the budget. So something to look at.
Yeah.
I think is what,
We can refine those calculations a little
right,
bit.
something to look at.
Well, you got a month to work on it.
Yep,
And check with the other,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find
other
out.
agencies and just, you can
See what-
email that to us.
See what,
if you
yeah,
want.
what their.
where everybody is on that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the school district's doing.
And I think what I'd like to do is look at kind of not just what, maybe the past 12-month window, because I knew there were some mid-year adjustments for a few
Yeah.
agencies.
Look at school, BJ,
Yeah,
both BJs,
Yes.
all the BJs,
yeah.
city, Bluffton County.
I haven't heard
Hardyville.
anyone at 7, haven't heard.
I haven't
anyone
heard
at
7. I haven't heard 7.
I've heard a lot of the 5 ranges.
I'm not saying we can't get
Oh,
there.
no, no.
Not saying we can't get
And
there.
staff didn't just say, staff
But our folks,
staff
our
was.
folks
No, I mean, I
love
hear
it.
you.
Calculating
Our folks
five.
love it.
Staff's not gonna argue with us, I know that.
Exactly, you know, we wanna look out for our people.
But,
The CPI, the Consumer Price Index, it comes out every month, is
Yep.
around 6, 7, 8%
Yep.
every month.
We're cool, coastal and far from ordinary. That's right.
anything else on the budget?
I think y'all,
Like I said, those are
You
my
got-
kind of issues on
You
it.
got, you got your kind of direction?
yeah,
Keep moving forward.
right.
It's gonna be some
Chris,
emails, it's gonna
Chris,
be
you
some
okay?
more updated,
Okay.
we're
We
good.
didn't put too much on you, did we?
Police, fire, you got what we're doing. I would like to propose, as we move forward, we change the name from streets to Public Works. Those guys do a lot more than streets, they are full Public Works, they do our stormwater, they do our parks, they do everything, I'd like to start thinking about
We're
that.
not doing much sanitation anymore, so,
They don't do sanitation other than pick up bulk, so
yeah.
let's start calling them what they are, and they're a Public Works Department, start thinking about that, in that aspect. Okay, well, in that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and we got a few minutes.
Go ahead.
Got a motion? Second, no vote necessary. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back at 6:30 for our regular council.